Welcome to the Storyverse podcast, where we celebrate the power of books in really improving our children's lives, our connections, our imaginations. And we're talking screen time today. Dr. Alison Burrows is with us today. She is an expert when it comes to digital literacy around the effect of screen time on the developing brain. She's a senior lecturer in education and childhood studies at Middlesex University and is here as a parent as well, which I think is really, really important. We're going to be talking about why books are still a really important tool in an increasingly digital world, and picking her brains on what we need to know as parents when it comes to setting healthy boundaries, the platforms we need to be aware of, and probably a little bit about our own screen use when talking to our children about theirs. Dr. Alison, thank you so much for your time today, and I know you're doing a huge amount of research regionally on the impact of screen time without demonising it on the children's brains. Why is this an area that you're so passionate about?
It's an area I'm passionate about because first, as an educator who goes into schools and trains teachers, and as a lecturer who runs a Master's of Education program for teachers who are actually teaching, I see them struggling to integrate technology in a meaningful way for their students. Mm-hmm. They don't know if a tech lesson is better than an old-fashioned lesson in some cases. And then I see it as a parent. Is my child having too much screen time? How is my child using the screen? Is what she is doing on the screen meaningful for her? Mm-hmm. Am I allowing her to rot her brain too much? Is she having a variety of activities in her day? So it's personal and professional for me.
Thank you for your honesty around that, because I think a lot of parents feel really conflicted, and it's very hard to know what is the right way. And we're not here to say, a 12-year-old should be having an hour of screen time per day. It's never going to be as prescriptive as that, because every family is different, every school is different, every child is different. But I do think there are some, real fundamentals when it comes to some of the research you've done that parents really need to understand. Yeah. What do you really wish that parents understood about the effects of screen time on children and their brains?
So I think parents really need to delineate the difference between active screen time and passive screen time. Okay. So active screen time is when the child is engaged and responding to what is happening with the screen. So this isn't so much screen time, but screen use.
What would be an example of that then, Alison?
So think about a well-designed game for a child where the child has to think, make choices, create a strategy, and set a goal. And then be able to shift and adapt based on the choices they're making and the strategy they're using and the goal they're setting.
As opposed to screen time that is passive, and immediately comes to mind is videos.
Right, short videos, consumption, mindless scrolling, social media.
And that's true of us as adults as well. Sometimes we scroll mindlessly, and that can be quite relaxing in the moment. But equally, our screen time can be challenging. It can be around problem solving. So I think it is really important to think about what the why behind that screen time. Yes. If we're thinking about that passive screen time where it is 6-second videos and dopamine hits, what is actually happening in the brain for a child, both long-term and short-term?
The way a child learns to pay attention is by paying attention. So what are we putting in front of them for them to be able to learn how to sustain focus? If we put 6 to 10 second videos in front of them that are repeating and repeating, how are they going to ever learn how to pay attention? So that's one of the biggest issues we see with short form content is not only do they not learn how to pay attention, but they get a reward, a dopamine hit every time the video changes. And this is also unethical in a sense because this kind of persuasive technology keeps them engaged, not only engaged, but motivated to continue using something that is not fundamentally good for their development.
More. I mean, I know my attention span has really suffered in the last few years, and I'm sure getting older is part of that, but I'm also sure my screen use has been, at an intersect in that as well. Yeah. So this information is really powerful for us to know because it's then what do we do with it? And to come back to that education setting, there are so many schools that are really grappling with how to use technology in the classroom. To come back to your point, teachers are trying to understand how can I use certain tech as a tool. It's not about replacing teachers, but when we think about the use of technology in classrooms, how can teachers really understand when it is useful? What are some of the questions they should be asking themselves, and equally us as parents be asking to a school, why is that there?
Right. So I would say this is a very complex question and very complex answers that's going to look different for age level, content area, context of where the school is.
Yeah.
I would say one of the most important differentiating factors is, does the technology enable something that the teacher and the classroom is not able to do?
Okay.
So a well-built education technology tool or app can provide individualized instruction for a child that can meet them at their ability level, and then provide them with just-in-time feedback and support when they are learning a skill. And that could be really, really powerful. So if I'm a 7-year-old and I'm learning multiplication for the first time, an app, when I make a mistake, the app can come in right then and there and tell me I made a mistake and then support me in correcting the mistake. A teacher can't simultaneously do that for 26 children in a classroom.
So, I really feel like personalised learning is the goal for so many schools right now, and the benefits are incredible. As you say, this is going to be something to assist a teacher. But then you've got kids who are like 5 or 6, and I have a lot of schools contact me and say, we're doing AI encoding in the classroom for our early years. And I kind of go, is that necessary? It's such a fine line between equipping our children and future-proofing them and kind of bandwagon jumping as well.
Yeah.
Now, I really adore AI. I use it a lot personally and professionally, but there's a lot of hype around it and there's a lot of concern around it. How do you think we can teach children to use AI responsibly and prepare them for a world where it is going to be everywhere?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd like to say is we are all guinea pigs in the AI situation right now. None of us have been taught how to use AI, so we're just using our instincts and trying to figure out what works for us. So this is why it's a really critical thing that we teach our children how to interact with AI in a meaningful way. So first and most importantly, we need to teach AI literacy. So we used to teach digital literacy, but now it's really AI literacy. What is AI? How does it work? What are inputs? What are outputs? Are the outputs always correct?
That critical thinking piece has never been more relevant for all ages, to be completely honest. Whether it is deep fakes around public figures or indeed inaccuracy of information. So children especially will be using AI in the classroom. Of course, whether that is to have fun prompts around, what would William Shakespeare think about the US election? Or, whether it is, as I'm sure we've seen at school and university level, using generative AI to create an essay or 3. But the teachers obviously need to be ahead of the game, and the parents do as well. I think that's the thing. It's very easy to look at AI and go, that's a scary, fast-moving thing, and I don't want to engage in it. And that's for other people. That's for younger people. As parents, we have a responsibility to kind of upskill ourselves so we can guide our children. Are you seeing a gap in take-up or an interest depending on generations? Or how are you finding people are worrying about it right now?
I think there are 2 camps right now. Some parents are all in and some parents are all out. So what I tell parents is, who do you want your child's first teacher about AI to be? Do you want it to be their 8-year-old friend? I want it to be me. I want to teach my daughter what it is and how to use it and how it might be able to help her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how it might be able to harm her, because we also see AIs such as chatbots. We see children forming what they think are very meaningful relationships with chatbots who are characters that they create. And those characters that they create can lead them into very difficult situations.
It's this, as I said, it comes back to this kind of fine line of leaning in and understanding this is an inevitable part of our future, but really navigating something that is deeply, deeply unregulated right now.
Yes.
And it is. We're in uncharted waters, but our role as parents is to be a port in that storm and to really kind of understand as much as we can. And when we're thinking about future-proofing our kids then, when it comes to tech, what does that look like with digital literacy, AI literacy, and responsible tech use?
So the first thing I say is first having a deep understanding of what it is and how it's created, and then also what it can create with your assistance. So schools and parents, if they are exposing their child to AI, think about how AI can help the child create something. So the child already has a basic idea of something they might want to invent, a story they might want to write. So they sit down and they write the story in real life. And then maybe they use AI as a critical friend to give them ideas on how to expand the story or how to make the story more engaging for a specific audience. But AI should not replace the original human work of creating something. And if we allow it to do that, it's a big disservice, especially to our kids who need to develop fundamental skills cognitively, socially, and emotionally in life.
The critical thinking piece is really important, whether it's AI or indeed social media. You know, something I'm trying to teach my kids all the time is that you are being sold. You are being sold a product, or if you're not being sold, your attention is being sold to a platform as well. It's really hard to think about, and as I said, we don't want to be prescriptive about how much screen time is appropriate at different ages. But when it comes to establishing your own values and boundaries around screen time as a family, any suggestions there without it turning into power struggles? And I guess I'm asking you to put your professor and your mum hat on now.
Yeah. So when you make a plan around screen time, it should be a family plan. Make the plan with your kids. Now, your kids might make some wild suggestions. We should be able to use the screen whenever we want. But as parents, we can validate and say, I understand you want to use the screen whenever you want. However, I want you engaged in a variety of activities during the day. So let's think about when is the best time during the day to use the screen, and what can you use the screen for during that time? I truly believe kids are allowed to be entertained.
Yeah.
I do. I believe they should and can use their screens for some entertainment. But is that what they should be doing all day, every day? No, of course not. So think about your values as a parent, because when we parent from our values, it's much easier for us to set boundaries.
And also to explain the why.
And the why.
You know, so children need to have those boundaries in place, but they also need to understand the reasoning behind them.
Yes.
Much like, you know, if you want to draw that food analogy, you know, everything in moderation, and this is why we have a balanced diet. You know, in this increasingly digital world, though, do you feel like books still have a role, Dr. Alison? Please say yes.
Oh, absolutely, of course. And one of the things that's so valuable about books is the bonding. So especially in early childhood, when the child goes to the bookshelf, picks out the books they want to read before bed, and then comes and sits next to you or snuggles on your lap, and then here you have this very tangible thing where you're turning pages together, and you're also finger pointing. When we finger point, we teach a child that reading happens from, if you're English, left to right, in other countries, or in Arabic, right to left, and that we read from the top to the bottom of the page, and we turn the page a certain way. That's all skill building. When we finger point on a device, we usually click something that takes us somewhere else, and now we've lost the story.
It's really interesting to think about how children do read, though, because when you do finger point and you're sounding out that word, they're not necessarily looking at that letter, but it might just be the shape of the letter, the length of the word.
Yeah.
And that's, as you say, that kind of tangibility. We use books a lot as tools for talking about tricky subjects as well, which I think is really, really important and a big part of what we want to do with Storyverse is helping children deal with emotional challenges or transitions, starting school, life changes and things like that. Where do you see the opportunity for that kind of storytelling and making your child the hero of their story as well?
I think it's very, very empowering for the child when it comes in the form of a story, because stories are not so abstract.
Yeah.
So when you put the child at the center of the story, the problem and the solution is about them, and then this gives them that experience of having one degree of separation from living this problem and solution, because it's happening through a story.
I'm really excited, I have to say, to see some of these stories brought to life and really see where the imagination of everyone watching is going to go. Can I ask you, Alison, as a mum as well, are there any platforms, apps or tools that you're really enjoying right now that your daughter's really into for constructive, useful screen time?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say before I even get to that is, as parents, we are modeling to our children how to interact with technology. So as parents, if you're constantly on a device, your kid will constantly
and you can't be that hypocrite being like, you need to have that screen time when I'm just
And I know we're very compelled to be on devices all the time for work.
Well, we can tell ourselves that as well.
You're right. So for me, I am now using an app called 1 Sec, like 1 second, but 1 second. It's free. And what it does is when you download the app, you align it to the different apps on your phone that you use mindlessly.
Okay, I'm thinking of one in particular, yes.
Yes, and it creates friction. So let's say I want to open up a certain mindless app on my phone. This will give me a 5-second countdown and ask me if I really want to open this app right now.
So it forces you to press the pause button.
Yes, and it's evidence-based, and it has gone through a randomized control trial at a very significant university in Germany. And what we're finding is that mindful technology use, really thinking mindfully, why am I using this tool right now, and how am I using this tool right now, helps us as grown-ups manage our digital use. And
being transparent with ourselves about that why is really important, but also with our kids as well. I'm very conscious. I often pick up my phone in front of them, and as you say, I've had to turn off some notifications because it was getting crazy. But the phantom buzz, or I'm just going to send one last email before this time. But saying to them what I'm doing and why, like I'm just messaging Dad to find out, something about X, Y, Z, or I've just got to send a quick email to whoever about this, because otherwise they just see us on the phone. This idea of what am I doing and why. I'm trying really hard to be a bit more present, just leave my phone in my handbag when I get home from work. Clear out a few emails in the car outside the house.
That's right.
And then put it away until bedtime. But it's hard. It's
very hard.
When we think about, as you said earlier, this attention span issue we're all struggling with, dopamine seeking behaviours. It is an addiction, and it's. Do we hope that privacy is going to become more prized? Do we think we might see a rejection of some platforms or screen usages in future generations? What are your predictions?
The first thing that I'd like to say, which is very controversial, is there's no such thing as privacy anymore. There just isn't. And depending on where you live, there's even less privacy. So where I live, when I go outside, I'm on camera all the time. And those cameras have data on my daily life, where I'm going, my favorite restaurant, supermarket, there's no more privacy. So I have to accept that come to terms with that based on the choice of where I live.
What we can do, though, is delay social media and phone use in our children to, maybe not as long as possible, but as far as we feel comfortable.
Yes.
And that's a really big battle for a lot of parents, especially, when we think about how busy our lives are, then we might have children who are doing after-school activities and might need a phone to
Right.
With the work you're doing around prolonging a screen-free childhood as far as possible, what are your big kind of top line of information to really put some tools in the parental toolkit for keeping their kids safe for as long as possible online?
Yeah, so I'd say definitely no smartphones. There's really no reason for your child to have access to the entire world of unfiltered information in their pocket. It can be extremely dangerous. So dumb phones, when my daughter gets her first phone, it'll be an old-fashioned flip phone where she can send me text messages and where she can call me if she needs me. My daughter doesn't need Google Maps. She can't drive till she's 18. She doesn't need to call an Uber because she's not allowed to go in a car by herself with a stranger. So dumb phone it is. She has a device. That device is used for school and occasionally for homework after school and for things that I approve of her doing online. So that device is regulated. That device has a content filter on it. And I control when she uses that device and when she does not use that device as well.
I think that's something that a lot of parents kind of struggle with, is this idea of, well, it's her phone or it's his social media account. Like, to my mind, I probably bought you that device, so that's mine.
That is, but when we think about the child, it's their social media account. And we want to build trusting relationships with our children, and that's so important to have that trust. I think we've gone beyond trust now because they're strangers on social media. This is where the predators are in 2025. So when I was growing up, the predators were in the playground. You don't go to the playground without a parent.
Don't talk to a stranger. And now it's like the strangers are, as you say,
online.
In your pocket.
Yeah. It's not about trust anymore. I completely trust my daughter in so many different scenarios, but it's the people that she can encounter. I don't trust them.
So what do you think the platforms need to do or change? I mean, is it too little too late? We've seen some big policy changes recently when it comes to teen accounts and family accounts, more transparency around who's messaging our children. What would you like to see change, whether it's on a policy or government level, with real, not just well-being of our youths and digital literacy, but their safety as well in mind?
So for safety, there should be very strong accountability measures on a government policy level enforced on various apps and social media companies. We need to raise the age of social media use, and then when a child actually signs up, they can't fake their age. So there's some kind of facial recognition that certifies how old they are and some kind of parental approval. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
It's interesting because, as you say, it's in the gaps of knowledge where the bad things happen, and that is for a child, but also for the adults as well. Yeah. We need to be leaning into these resources, equipping ourselves with research and numbers.
Yes.
Which I know, as I said, you're really, really passionate about, especially here in the region.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
We need to take the fear and the panic out as well, because there's so much clickbait about how this is destroying our youth and destroying everything, and that's not helpful. That's not solving problems. So I really want to think about, this is here to stay. Technology is not going away. Social media is not going away. AI is not going away. If anything, it is proliferating quickly. So now it's about how. How do we teach our kids how to use it in a way that aligns with their development?
And lastly then, if you could give one piece of advice to any parent who is raising a child in the digital world, as we all are, what would it be?
You are your child's first teacher on how to interact with technology. So examine how you are using it yourself, how you are talking about it when you're using it to your child, and then teach your child very intentionally, based on your values, how to use it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your insights today. As I said, it's not about scaremongering, it's about empowering, it's about knowing where the resources are, and indeed moving forward together. I think it's really encouraging to think about the research that's being done in this space, and whether that is on a family level, using those family resources, or in the work that you're doing when it comes to well-being and prolonging that screen-free childhood as long as possible. Dr. Alison Burrows, absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us on today's Storyverse episode. We've got more to come, more experts, more insight advice, more tools for your toolkit, and of course, all about keeping your child as the hero of their own story.